Mike, am I doing the roll call? Am I saying it out loud or just checking Zoom?
Morning.
Morning, we're live on YouTube.
All right. Try to get rid of my lens flare.
I'm going to start the recording now as well. So we're being recorded and we're live on YouTube.
Hey, Mike, am I doing a verbal of the attendance or am I just doing it via Zoom?
Just do it via Zoom. Just try to speed things up a little bit.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks, Tanya.
Hey, Mike. Hey, everyone.
Hello, Susan.
Hey.
Hello. Good morning.
Morning. I like Jordan's dog.
Thank you. That's Jude, Sir Jude.
Got a corgi?
Yep. He is, I don't know, my wife would have to tell you all the details, but he's I think a Welsh Pembroke corgi, and he's tricolored, but all kinds of fancy stuff. He was a quarantine impulse purchase, but he's been a fun one.
Are those the dogs that are real like low to the ground?
Yeah, he's about 12 inches tall at the shoulders. He's almost, I think, 8 months old.
Yeah, cutie.
All right, it looks like it's 10 o'clock. So I guess we're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order at 10 o'clock on September 3rd, 2020. Okay, so I guess we're going to, Tanya is going to just do the roll call just by just via Zoom. So we're going to skip over that part and just go straight to the officer's report. Everything that I want to talk about is in our agenda, or President Bunny is going to be speaking on it. So in an effort to save time, I'm just going to go on to the next person. So, is there a vice chair report, Monica?
No, I will defer as well. Everything that we will talk about will be in the workforce that's already on the agenda. Thank you.
Let's see, Chris, is there a technology report?
No, I do not have a report this month. Jennifer will speak to what we've been doing in our committee.
Okay. And let's see, Jennifer, is Jennifer on here?
Not yet, I don't believe. But once we get to committee reports, I'm sure, hopefully should be on by then.
All right, Doug, is there a parliamentarian report?
No report. Emily is helping me finalize the changes to the parliamentary guide, and that should be out before our next meeting.
Okay. And Tanya, do you have a secretary report?
Nope, not at all.
Report. Okay. Emily, I see. Okay, Emily, is there a treasurer report?
Yes, sorry. So again, there was no additions or disbursements to our E&G index. So the ending balance for August was $3,668. We are working on the book scholarships and making sure that the recipients get their awards finalized. There's been some issues with getting the funds set up with the Barnes and Noble people. So that is still kind of in the process. And as far as I am aware, they the recipients still do not have access to those funds for their scholarships. So we're trying to get that resolved. And then really quickly for the ramp committees that Doug Tate and Brian Campbell are on, the capital assets. Doug was a part of a meeting on Monday, this past Monday on August the 31st, and they're working on space allocation processes. So that's moving forward. And then the operation allocation committee that Brian Campbell is on, they have a kickoff meeting on September the 29th. So all of that is moving forward and looks pretty good. So there we go.
Okay. Still don't see Jennifer. David, do you have a region report you'd like to share?
Mine will be very brief. We have our next set of committee meetings in late September. I finally received the revisions to a procedural piece we've been working on yesterday, and we'll be sharing those with the rest of the committee members and board as they're filtered through. So that's, and that is tied to President Caboni. What we did is we took the required procedures and policies related to the president out of the bylaws and made those updatable, so you don't have to change the bylaws every time you need to make a change. So if for whatever reason, this just makes it a little more flexible, and it's better, because it's just not a good practice to go change the bylaws just to change a policy. That's it. Thanks.
All right. Jennifer, I think she had technical issues, but she's here with us now. So Jennifer, do you have a communications officer report?
Just a very brief report. We met this morning and we continue to work on the committee with getting all the information on the website with the senators' quotes and whatnot, and getting that updated. We also discussed having some rewording on our emails that shoot out anonymously, as well as the email for the staff Senate boxes, just to provide a little more clarity on what we're looking for in terms of questions, since we're getting quite a few more questions that are coming in on a monthly basis. So we're going to try to clean that up so that we can have clear, specific questions when we come to the meeting and bring those to the table.
Thank you, Jennifer. Yeah, I think that's something, well, we're going to talk about that more detail later, but thank you, Jennifer, for your committee working on that. Okay, that's all the reports. So President Caboni, thank you for joining us today. I appreciate you taking the time to address Staff Senate, and I guess all the staff members are watching via YouTube right now.
Well, thanks for having me. This will be my fourth visit to begin the semester with Staff Senate since being named president. I've started each year with this visit, and pleased to be able to continue the tradition. If it's fine with everybody, I'll just proceed the way we proceeded in previous years, which is just some brief comments from me, and then I'll take some questions. And I appreciate, I want to start with this though. I appreciate the leadership of staff, and particularly Mike Loftus, who has been just terrific during the 6 months we just endured, and thinking about how we got to what has been a successful so far restart, and the work of staff to help prepare campus. And sometimes folks forget that a good number of staff were here, not just beginning in June, July, or August, but never left campus. And one of the things I hope you all will notice is that not having 18,000 students walking across the grass has made campus really spectacular. And the grounds crew, the custodial crew, all the folks that continue to work, not just from home, but here in person, they just did a terrific job. But to all of our staff, thank you for the work that you've done to get us here. We're in week 2 of our restart, and things are going as planned, which is about as good as we can do at this point. We continue to be vigilant, have to be nimble, and have to be flexible. But I'm pleased, particularly with our students. And I know some portion of our community doesn't think that our students can do this. I've been really proud of how they've reacted and stepped up to the challenge in front of them. The wearing of masks. To be candid, I'm surprised and thankful for the number of students that are even wearing their mask outdoors. And so I know the people see things and say things and try to help folks do better. It's on each one of us to have our own personal responsibility. But I tell you, I've been around campus. I've visited during master plan with the individual courses. Everybody was in their mask. I've spent some time in DSU. Admittedly, we had a line issue in the first few days. Has been resolved. And so I think that we're doing a terrific job at gaining compliance where it doesn't seem to be well done. But 95% of our students, our staff, our faculty, I think are doing exactly what we need to have done. And I'll tell you, I've not been in a building where folks are just sitting around without their masks on. I think we've really done well. And I think our entire community has stepped up and risen to the huge challenge that we have in front of us. Despite those challenges, I'm really pleased with where we are as an institution. And if you look at our first year class coming in this fall, as a result, primarily because of our new scholarship program, our enhanced and completely revamped marketing efforts for recruitment, we had the largest gain year over year in our first year class in over 30 years. That is a remarkable, remarkable accomplishment. And I want to thank the staff first who made that happen. All the folks in enrollment and student engagement have just really been pouring their heart and soul into getting folks here this fall. That we managed to do that, even with going virtual with the challenges of the pandemic, was just a remarkable performance. And that's on the recruitment side. On the retention side, continuing to focus on that 80-60 goal in the strategic plan, made tremendous gains year over year in first to second year retention, even taking out the students that we might not have brought back because of either academics or finances, working hard there. We're still up in that first year retention. And I'm really proud of our work that is key to all of our successes. And that's making sure that we close that persistence gap among low income, first gen, and students of color. Martha Sales and the ISEC group and everyone else on this campus who helps our students know that they have a home here, that when they need assistance, we're going to turn to them and support them, have just done incredible work. More work to do to hit that 80% goal, but I'm really proud of where we are. And then last, on graduation. Last year, we graduated more bachelor's degree students than ever before in WKU's history, and we had the highest 6-year graduation rate ever in WKU's history. So even in the midst of challenges, we're performing on recruitment, graduation, and retention. On the diversity, equity, inclusion front, I was pleased with the progress that we've made. We were the second highest rated institution in the Commonwealth this year, only a few points behind University of Louisville. And we're going to continue to push on that front. I think Michael Crow and Molly Kirby in their new leadership roles have done a terrific job bridging academics and students. And I think that what you're seeing is not just a renewed focus, but also a renewed vibrancy around those efforts. And as I've said over and over again, diversity is not one person's challenge. Inclusion can't be done by a single group or committee. This is going to take all of us as a community, a WKU community, a Bowling Green Warren County community, a Commonwealth community, a national community to create change. And so I'm proud of the work that we're doing there and the work that's going to come during the course of the semester. Had some terrific developments over the summer for our innovation campus with 2 new small business development center folks being co-located there in our small business accelerator space will be incredibly important as we emerge on the other side of COVID to make sure that we're supporting and growing those young companies that really need our support to be successful here. And then on the other side, we were added to the Innovation Network for the Commonwealth. Bowling Green now is a node that also centered on the Innovation Campus. I think it's really important that we take advantage of the opportunities we're going to have with people rethinking some of their living patterns. And so if you've seen if you followed along in the Northeast, we see folks relocating to less dense places, more space. The flexibility from working at home has created tremendous demand in more rural areas as compared to downtowns and folks living in condos. And so I think we're perfectly positioned for growth in that area from Nashville, certainly. And so we're working hard there, but also working in conjunction with the South Central Kentucky Chamber on their board, working on a new strategic plan. All of that will be essential as we work to rebuild and revive the economy during the next couple of years. And then lastly, you can't help but notice what's happening on the south end of campus with the First Year Village rising up, and it's a remarkable facility. More importantly, though, it's not about buildings. This is about completely transforming what our young people experience in their first year here. So instead of entering with 3,500 other students, they come in with 23 with a shared academic interest or co-curricular interest, an advisor who helps mentor them in that first year, hopefully connected to their interests, a co-scheduled course so that as they work through that first and second semester, they work on projects together in their living space, and a peer advisor just down the hall also sharing that academic interest. Really important work for, number one, making the 150 hours outside of class as important as the 15 or so they spend in class. But also, we know that the importance of social integration and academic integration, Vince Tinto's work on persistence and retention. And these kinds of relationships developed in a close living situation, but that's also infused with academics, I think is going to really help us. I think it's comparatively on the marketplace something really special. We see, we project great demand, not just for those spaces, but also a kind of a reimagined freshman experience, more of an Oxford or Cambridge type model, but at a place like this. And I think that's a remarkable thing for us as a university to be able to offer. I'm excited about that. Certainly the Commons at Helm Library will open at the end of the spring semester, and the work continues there. So lots of accomplishments, lots to do. We'll continue to press on our scholarship programs. We continue to raise money for our Opportunity Fund, $39 million in the past 3 years. I'm thankful to Casey for her work there and all of the folks in philanthropy. And then the most important thing, and I went out to dinner at Fresh Foods last night and was walking home. I ran into a student from Louisville. She and I had met and got our picture made at the at Master Plan last year. She was one of our first cohort of summer scholars, and asked her how she was doing, how she navigated through, and she was thankful, and essentially said to me, I needed to have this place open because this is what's safe for me. And being back home in Louisville was not a safe environment. And we can't lose sight of the fact that the reason we worked so hard for 6 months wasn't because we all wanted to come back to work. The reason we've all been flexible around what we're doing isn't because we needed that flexibility. The reason we've all sacrificed is really to make sure we're able to meet our institution's mission, and not losing sight of the fact that about a third of our students desperately need to be here physically on campus. And without this experience, without their ability to continue classes, have a residential experience here, their lives will be altered negatively and potentially permanently. And so I'm thankful for all of your work. I'm thankful that we're back. It's a new normal. It doesn't feel the same, but glad to be with you all and to start our semester off together again. Proud of where we are. Lots of work to go. And with that, Mike, I'll take a few questions from folks.
President Mike, could you also kind of, I guess, we've discussed earlier, I guess last week, that there's a lot of staff that, are concerned about their health with COVID-19. And I guess one of the things that that we talked about is, I guess, what would happen if we start seeing office areas on campus in a particular department may have, develop multiple cases. Could you kind of go through the process of what would happen?
Yeah, Mike, I appreciate that question. And I think you actually saw a good example of how this works. We're paying very close attention to see if there are patterns in positivity results. And when we begin to see an emerging pattern, not a pattern itself, but an emerging pattern, if we think that there may be something down the road, we have surge testing capacity on campus, meaning we're going to take a look at where those cases might be arranged, and we're going to go test everyone around that. So last week on Friday, I announced testing for our Greek letter organization housing arrangements. So fraternities and sororities have houses and live in proximate conditions that might create an environment where COVID could spread. And given some of what we had seen, we thought it would be prudent for us to go ahead and proactively test all of those houses. And so what we've done is we've asked all of the folks who live in Greek housing to come in and get their test, and we completed that yesterday afternoon. We will do the same thing in a residence hall, within courses, within academic departments, within specific buildings. If there's anything that suggests that there may be more than one or two folks coming down with the virus or catching it, we want to quickly intervene, and we have the capacity to do that. The other thing that I think is really important to note, and I'm really proud of our community for this, in that first week of results, when we were actually back, classes being delivered, everyone taking their meals, if you look at the transmission, we've had some student-to-student transmission, but last week, not a single faculty, staff, or contractor tested positive. And that's a good thing. And the reason it is because it demonstrates not only that we can do this, but number two, that any spread or any transmission is not happening in the instructional spaces, right? So we've done what we needed to do, 6 feet apart, always masked, and I think that's a positive for the community. We continue to monitor. We're working really hard. You saw yesterday there was a positive case in one of our dining locations. Shut it down, went in, contact traced everybody, did the cleaning necessary, and so we're going to be quick and aggressive anytime we see the beginnings of a pattern. And so I hope folks see that, are comfortable with the fact that we're paying very close attention, and we'll continue being aggressive to make sure we don't have, do all we can to prevent spread.
Thank you for addressing that. I guess I'm going to open up the questions to other staff Senate members. And also, I think Jennifer Wilson has graciously been compiling some questions that staff Senate has received through anonymous emails, and see what we get asked as well. But so we're going to open up the floor. If anyone wants to have any questions, go ahead.
Some of these questions that I've been trying to compile, we've gotten more than, I guess, what has been normal in previous years in terms of questions over the course of the month. Most of them are pertaining to the COVID-19 crisis that we're dealing with. And I don't know if these are questions that the president necessarily needs to address, but Susan's on and some others may be able to respond. Several of the questions have been pertaining to cleaning in the buildings and people wondering if there is in fact been more involvement with cleaning the buildings throughout the day.
Absolutely. One of the things that we worked hard on over the summer and facilities has put in is an enhanced cleaning and disinfecting protocol. That's in our residence halls and our instructional buildings. There's enhanced cleaning certainly of the restroom facilities and high touch areas. I will say the transmission seems not to be from surfaces, but person to person, but we still are being really aggressive. Not just with the amount of cleaning, but the way in which we clean. And so I've learned more than I ever thought I would know about cleaning protocols. And so for all of our custodial staff, most of whom have been here all summer getting ready, they were trained on a different kind or different set of cleaning, right? With different products to make sure that we're being really aggressive. And so I appreciate the comment. I know that there are questions. If there are detailed questions or you don't think your area is being cleaned well enough, you can either email the COVID email address, contact DFM directly. And the same thing goes with products. I know there were a couple of folks who said, well, I don't have any hand sanitizer, or we don't have the materials that we need to be able to open. And what I want to reiterate is that we have plenty of PPE available if you just ask. And so if you put that request in, facilities will come, make sure you have the hand sanitizer you need, the cleaning supplies you need. The folks who are working custodial jobs are taking a look at the hand sanitizer at the building entrances, making sure they stay filled and refilled. So I know it'll never be perfect, right? But don't let perfect be the enemy of the good. We can get better. We can continue to push through, but we also need to work together. And so that means if you see something that needs to be fixed, please let somebody know. And I appreciate the anonymous emails because people don't feel comfortable sometimes sharing information. It's not real helpful though. Sometimes we get these anonymous emails that say, well, in my building, I'm not going to tell you which one because I don't want you to know this is wrong. Yeah. And we can't address that issue unless you give us a little more information. So we're all in this together. We're working as hard and as diligently as we can, and we want to make sure we get all those things addressed. So I appreciate the inquiries, and if there are things in there that are pretty specific, we'll knock them out real quick.
I think it's worth mentioning as well who the Healthy at Work officers are. I know it's on the website, but for those listening, Laura Tomlin, Brandon Higgins, Michael Gaddy, and of course, Brian Russell said that he is more than happy to answer questions, as well as for cleaning response, Ken Branch, or any of the Healthy at Work officers. I'm just throwing that out there.
Great.
Wow. We've gotten several more in. There was a question, and I don't know if you can respond regarding, this is not COVID related, but HR. There's an HR study going on. Could Susan or the president respond to the Simpson HR study?
Yeah, so we're looking at, you all will remember we have two of the two areas of work that are occurring. One is around compensation nationally. The other is around performance evaluation. Given all the other work that had to occur during COVID, we essentially pushed the pause button on those two activities, and essentially scaled back the engagement. Those will begin to ramp up again in the next few months as we continue to think about how we build a new performance evaluation system and how we work to address compression on salary. So a good question. No updates because we've all been focused on the restart plan. But as I have tried with all of the members of the cabinet and the task force, we have to get back to the task at hand, which was for 5 months restarting. But now that we've restarted, it's advancing the institution. So a good question.
There is a question regarding, and it's come up several times, but just for clarity, if somebody is testing positive in an office, will the other employees within that office be notified? And that goes back to the contact tracing. So
If it's a close contact, yes, they'll be notified. But the way in which we all should be working, if we do that correctly, there will not be a close contact. A little bit different in food preparation, perhaps. So I'm thinking about here in the office. Today, Julie McDonald and Jennifer Smith are both in the president's office today, and we're rotating through the same way everyone else's offices are rotating through. Anytime we walk in the building, we each have a mask on until we get into our office. When we get into our office, we shut the door. My door is closed here. So at that point, we can take our masks off. If Jennifer or Julia were to test positive, number one, I'm likely to know because they're just not going to show up, number one. But number two, I would not hear from them contact tracing, right? Because we have not been within 6 feet of each other without a mask for 15 minutes. There was a question, I think Mike and other folks have said, well, shouldn't we have to notify our employer and then everyone knows? We're being really careful not to stigmatize or share positive testing around individuals as an institution. But think about this. If I come in every other day or I come in every day and I test positive, the first thing that's going to happen is if you don't feel well, don't come in. Call the COVID hotline, set up a test, go get tested and go back home. That's exactly what they're going to tell you to do. If you're not coming into work, you're probably going to call your supervisor and let them know that you're not coming into work. And so what happens is this is a much more organic process. That if I go and I test positive, I go back home and I quarantine for 14 days. You continue to get it paid. We want people to be able to do their jobs as much as they can from home during those 14 days. If they really don't feel well, then they get to recover and not work. So we're being just super flexible there. But it shouldn't take out the entire, for example, if it's a student, it should not, there wouldn't be a contact for all those students in the class unless for some reason, and this shouldn't be happening, there weren't masks on for 15 minutes and it was closer than 6 feet. So I appreciate the concern. I also want to, again, reiterate that, yeah, we've had about what we thought we would have around student infection rates. But I'm really pleased that it appears last week there was no faculty or staff transmission and no positive cases. So that's a good thing. So I get the anxiety and the concern, and we're right. This is a serious illness. We all should be concerned. We've taken drastic steps to protect the most vulnerable among us. If you need to be at home because you have a comorbidity, if you're over a certain age, then we want you doing your work from home. We don't want you to even potentially be exposed. But for those who are here, we again have created, I think, what is as safe of an environment as possible in the new reality.
And since you mentioned numbers, President, there's been some questions regarding discrepancies with statistical data at the state level versus data on our website. Can you please elaborate on that?
Yeah, the governor is working hard to create a dashboard for higher education. This entire pandemic has created and exposed the challenges for not just of leadership in times of uncertainty, but also our challenges of our public health system. And so I want to be really clear. No university can fix the state of our public health system in the Commonwealth. We're working hand in glove with Barron River Health. They are terrific partners. But data collection around testing is a challenge. It's a challenge for all of our organizations. The question has been, well, tell me what the positivity rate is. and I'll say it again as clearly and as simply as I can. Given the data to which we have access, we cannot calculate a positivity rate. It says it right there on the dashboard. And the reason we can't is we don't have the negative tests from off-campus testing. Barron River doesn't share that. And so it's not calculable. And so that's on the kind of positivity side. On the discrepancy side, the governor is taking information, and I think other folks are taking information from local health departments and bringing that up. We're taking that and bring it into what we have. And so there is essentially, it's a data disconnect between these two systems. And we're doing the best we can, providing as much information as we can. With the uncertainty and the fear, I understand people say, oh, well, they're hiding something. No, the opposite. We actually provided as much information as we could. And because of that, I think there was some concern around, the numerator and the denominator, dividing that up and getting a percentage. You can't do that with the data we have. And to be candid, when you think about positivity rates, those are really valuable when you're talking about a population testing effort. We're not doing population testing. We're just not in Warren County or across the state. It really is it's symptomatic. And so it's apples and oranges and bananas sometimes, all of these data. We're sharing as much as we can. We're being as transparent as we can be. And I think that the important thing to look at is number of cases and number of cases in the past week and number of cases recovered, to be honest with you. I don't want anyone to get COVID, but I think the recovery data we're seeing on campus is it's positive. I'm unaware of anyone who's had to go to the hospital from the tests in the past couple of weeks, and so that's a really positive thing for us. I think treatment's getting better. We're being aggressive, and so it's a lot of information, but I hope addresses some of the concerns we've heard during the past couple of weeks.
Mike, am I missing some pertinent questions that you can think of for the president? I mean, we have other questions that I don't think are relevant necessarily for President Caboni or anyone else for that
jump in
matter.
there, Jennifer, if you don't mind. Good morning, Dr. Caboni.
Hey, Chris, how are you?
Doing well. I just wanted to kind of hit on what you talked about, offices being flexible as possible. So for instances where, say, a manager is not working to be flexible with his staff or whatnot, what would you recommend those individuals to do? Because I mean, not everyone feels comfortable challenging the process in every instance.
Yeah.
I just want to hear from you. What do you feel like that individual or those individuals should do?
So I've talked and said this directly in every setting where I've gotten the question. We must be flexible. We must help folks be able to do their jobs in a way that if they need to be home, allows them to be at home. We have kids now who are only in school 2 days a week. And so that means 3 other days a week, we have childcare challenges. Every supervisor on this campus needs to make sure that they're listening to the needs of their employees and creating that flexibility for them around healthcare, around childcare, around age and comorbidities. We've said this from the beginning. We must be nimble and flexible. If your supervisor is telling you, is not working with you, again, I think 95% of what we're hearing is good stuff, right? Folks we're working this out. We're figuring what we need. How do we manage through? But if you're not comfortable, figure out who your supervisor's boss is. And if you don't want to do that, find the vice president who's responsible for that area. Go directly to them. But I need you're going to have to share the names. Yeah. We can't do anything unless I know who's not being flexible. I mean, I've received, Mike has shared with me, a wonderfully detailed complaint about everything that wasn't happening right with an individual. But I can't do anything about it because I don't know what the office it is. I don't know who their supervisor is. I don't even know the division. I mean, it could be in my area. It could be in facilities, it could be in student affairs, it could be in philanthropy. I just don't know. And so when I get those, I'll reiterate for leadership, make sure next time you have your division gatherings, you tell people we got to be flexible and use this as an example of what we shouldn't be doing. And so I want folks to hear from me. And if there are supervisors who are listening or watching, be flexible.
We also have that staff accommodation request form that HR has prepared, kind of like the faculty. So I think it kind of goes through that, right? It goes up to the next boss and the next boss. And there's a link that maybe we can put on the staff council website or staff senate website as well.
Yes.
Yeah, Lauren, I appreciate that. And what we've said throughout this is instead of creating, email forms and some more bureaucratic stuff, let's lean on leaders across the organization. And so for faculty, it was work with your department chair and your deans around modality. For staff, it's work with your department head, right? And figure out who your director is. And if that doesn't work up through your VP, if we can't get it solved that way, that's when you want to use that form and say, hey, I'm asking for this, I'm not getting it. Let's see what we can create. But I think 95% of the challenges we've had, we've managed through at the department level. And that's exactly what you want as a good learning organization, right? So if things aren't working, how do we get this fixed together instead of, well, I'm just going to fire off an email and get you in trouble. I mean, I said, that's not what we need to be working toward. I'm pleased that as many issues as folks have shared, I will tell you again, it's 95% of what we're doing is working just fine. We want to get from 95 to 97 to 98%, if your goal is perfection, then you'll always be a failure, unfortunately.
Yes. Thank you for that answer. I wanted to reiterate that because we can accomplish more working together and communicating versus, being standoffish and not being open about situations. So thank you very much.
Chris, it reminds me, and I did not say this in my opening comments, but I do want to share it. There were emails that came up, well, what do I do if I see someone not in a mask in a building? I'm like, you got to go up to them and say, hey, did you forget your mask? Make sure, hey, we're all wearing masks, right? It's on each one of us. And that's how you create a shift in culture, right? It's not going to be because the mask police come around and check to see. It's all of us saying, look, this is the expectation. If we want to have any chance to do this, I need you all to put your mask on. And if you don't, you're gonna have to go outside, go someplace else. We've had the pretty clear conversations with faculty around what that looks like in a classroom. To be honest, I've heard of one instance in 2 weeks of a mask issue in a class. And I think that's exactly where we want to be. I think folks are getting used to it. I think people are more comfortable wearing the mask now. And again, last night, there was a long line for Burrito Bowl. Apparently it was more popular than Fresh last night. But folks were standing on their dots 6 feet apart with their masks on. So I think we're all working hard to be compliant.
We've got a couple more questions that came in, and one is actually a repeat from a couple of times this month. The first one has to do with Anthem covering COVID testing. Do we know if they will cover an employee more than once?
Yes. If you want a test, this is for a faculty member, a staff member, and a student. If you want a test, go get a test, period. It will not cost you anything. They should not be billing. And so if there's any issue with that, we'll address it on the back end. But I want everyone in the community to hear from you. Don't avoid getting a test because you don't want to get a bill. You can go get tested. I'm not suggesting you do this. You can go get tested every day. At some point, we might have to have a conversation. But if you don't feel well or you're concerned, go get tested because it'll make you feel more at ease. And I think that's a good thing.
Clarification, is that just at the Graves Gilbert location on campus, or is that any testing facility?
Susan might have to help me with that. Go to Graves Gilbert and get the test. That keeps it in our system. It helps.
what I figured. I just wanted
but if you're
that-
off campus, go wherever it is. I did one out at on Lover's Lane. No bill. So you can do it wherever you need to do it. We have lots of folks getting tested, lots of places. And if you get a bill, we'll get it fixed. You're not gonna be billed.
Yeah. Yeah. So Emily, I got tested in Bardstown and was not billed. I know there were some glitches that people did receive some bills. Again, as President Cavoni has said, get tested as many times as you want. If there is issues around billing, please get in touch directly with me and I'll deal with Tony and wait on it. Okay.
I will just, let me jump in here very quickly because I had an employee report to me this week. This wasn't my question on the forum, but I had an employee report to me this week that when they went to Graves Gilbert told them that they may not cover it. It may not be covered, that they'll submit it, that it may not be covered. Now, if that's the language that, I don't know that this, again, but I have no reason to believe this individual didn't tell me the truth, but I'm just reporting out what I was told.
I want to reiterate for you, I'll reiterate it with Graves Gilbert and the staff. No one will be charged for a COVID test on this campus, period. Period. You're hearing it from the president. If somebody sends you a bill, bring it to Susan, we'll fix it. Nobody will be charged. Nobody will be charged. Clear. Is that anybody? This is being recorded. Somebody copy that and put it on the interwebs. No charge for no COVID testing.
So Tony just texted me and he said, any facility is the answer. Employees can use any facility. So
go get tested. If you feel sick, don't come to work. Go get your test. If you stop being able to smell your breakfast, go get your test. Okay? I want everybody to hear. Go test. The more testing we have, the better we can do at stopping the spread.
The second question that's come up a couple of times is not COVID related. It's regarding budgets across campus and people being able to get supplies without having to go through a longer chain of command. Maybe Susan can address that since it's come up a couple of times.
Before Susan goes, I do want to say how appreciative I am of the flexibility we've all demonstrated. We are going through a period of extreme austerity by design to slow our spend rate. The uncertainty around budgets in some ways has been alleviated on the enrollment revenue side. So this is something as a community we must celebrate. We're up 450 first-year students. Our enrollment essentially is flat for the first time in who remembers. But we're still in the middle of COVID. We got to make sure we get through add drop. We have to make sure we get every first-year student and returning student back in the spring semester. And then we also have the state budget challenges. And so I want folks to hear, I appreciate the extra steps we've around purchasing, around P cards, around, it is supposed to slow the process down some. At the same time, we have to be flexible as well. And I know there are ongoing conversations around how do you tweak this in such a way that for either small or regular type purchases that we don't have as many hoops to jump through. And so I'll let Susan address the details of that. But it's necessary for us to be able to manage through this year. Susan?
yeah, so Dr. Caponi's right. I appreciate everyone's willingness to be patient with us on this. I think it's important. I think we've done a great job as a campus community, slowing the spending down. We've also, again, because of the great job we've done in securing that freshman class, it looks as if our tuition revenue will be well over budget, which is absolutely incredible during this time. I mean, I cannot overstate that. The thing that's still a little concerning is state appropriation. We will not know that for certain until probably January timeframe. Remember, we have a 10% reduction in state appropriation built in. So if we're anywhere between 0 and 10%, we're good as far as our budget. If it goes over 10%, we'll have to reassess where we stand financially. What I would like to do is get us through the first quarter, which be patient for about another 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks. We can assess our spending then for a full quarter and see how we might be able to loosen things up around pro cards a bit with reduced limits, opening maybe one up per division department. Anyway, I'm just trying to get us through that first quarter and see how we look and how we can forecast out. We've got the new software, which allows us the forecasting capability, which we'll be able to do for the first time on campus. So that's great news. I just, again, just be patient with us for about 3.5 more weeks. I think also you guys are aware that we've lost 2 key positions in purchasing. Ken retired and Ashley left, the assistant director, she left for another position. So once again, I'm putting an interim plan in place, but that may slow down things a bit with vacancies in that department, but we'll get through. So again, if you have any issues that you don't feel like are being addressed as quickly as we can, send me an email directly. I don't care, text, email, whatever, and we'll deal with it.
Susan, I would like to say on the Ken and Ashley leaving, I didn't know that until yesterday, and I found it out when I was in Top Shop. So there was some issues with approvals, and I had to refresh some stuff because Ashley had been taken out. So I deal with them a lot, and I didn't know until yesterday. So I don't know, maybe an email could go out from supply chain management stating that if you had some requisitions in process that you might have to go in and check on them.
So I can do that, Emily. Unfortunately, I was not given much notice of these departures. I know that Ken has been talking about for several years that he was going to leave. But his retirement, I've known about for maybe a month. But the other employee, there wasn't much notice. So we had to, excuse the term pivot, but we had to pivot very quickly in that area. So again, though, I think a communication out to campus is appropriate. So I'll work with our communications folks.
I completely understand on that. It was kind of one of those things, I didn't know about it until I was in the system. And so I was kind of thrown for a loop.
Understand.
President, but we received also another question about the internal office departments being, 2 positions being vacant and the crucial role that they play here on campus involving overseeing revenue and expenditures. Can you address what's going on in that area?
Absolutely. I'll do my part and then Susan has some more detail. Internal audit is an important function, an oversight function for the entire institution. If someone sees something they believe is improper, if you go to the internal audit site, we still have that telephone number up where you can report, and that will go to essentially our interim solution, which is Christy Smith, who's going to be performing those duties in the very short term. In the medium term, we have a job description that will be posted, and we're going to go through a search to replace the director position first and see how we navigate through this. I always, this is an important position for a couple of reasons. It's oversight. It helps make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. But more importantly, it's a strategic function to help organizations within the university have their processes in a stronger place. To look at exposure and eliminate or reduce that exposure to any type of fraudulent behavior or kind of miscalculation of things. And then the last is, and this is a really important function, is the risk management side of it. So with everything that we're going through, the work that we're doing, the decisions that we're making, where are the potential future risks to the institution and how are we doing that risk mitigation? So I appreciate the concern. It's an important role and we'll conduct that search. In the interim, I'm confident that Christy can handle those job responsibilities, particularly as we manage through an interesting fall. Susan, anything to add?
The only thing I'll add, I think President Caboni's done a good job, thorough job of explaining it. Now that Christy has just about the year-end financial statements audit completed. There's probably another 2 to 3 weeks on that. She's going to be spending more time on the internal audit function and of the enterprise risk management that the president referenced. So again, the position will be posted very soon. I think Christy had, Christy reports with this audit function. She reports directly to the board with a dotted line to the president, but she did tell me that she was working with the board chair and vice chair around the job description to see if they had any input.
Do you have anything else, Jennifer?
I don't know that I have anything directly for the president. We may have some things at the end of the meeting just to point out that we've learned from other people. And I just want to personally thank both of you for being here today. And it means a lot to the staff to have you here to respond to questions.
Always glad to be with you. And again, my appreciation for all of the extra work, all of the different work, and for navigating tremendous uncertainty. The past 6 months have been a historic challenge for this institution. And I said at the beginning, and I'll reiterate it now, that in times of crisis, organizations and individuals demonstrate who they are and what they do at their core. And I think the way in which we've performed, the way in which you've performed has been remarkable. And so lots more work to go. There is a countdown ticker to the 20th of November, but we're gonna get there. We're gonna be nimble, we're gonna be flexible, we're all gonna think differently, but I appreciate all the individual effort and the collective effort of the community. And thanks for having me again, Mike. I appreciate you.
Yep.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for coming.
Bye, y'all.
Thank you.
Mike, I'm willing to stay on. If you'd like for me to stay on, I can get off as well.
Oh, yeah, if there might be some questions you might get help answer.
Okay, I'll stick around.
Hey, Mike, I have some questions. We had a couple questions that weren't answered or that weren't not asked to the president that were directly to him. Are there reasons why we didn't ask them?
Oh, were there a question? We've got a lot. I don't know. Do we miss what questions?
Well, some of them contained a lot of. I mean, the sentiment wasn't professional at all. So I think we didn't have a lot of time to sift through those and actually, present them in a way that was respectful. To be honest with you, it's one of those things that I don't know. Jennifer wants to elaborate more on it. But hopefully going forward, we can get these questions in sooner so we don't have to ask multiple questions and things of that nature. Jennifer, I don't want to speak too much prematurely, but.
For example, we have questions regarding everything from where can you get masks and the vending machines on campus? I don't know that we have an answer to that. I don't know. I know we personally in the libraries have masks in our vending machine, but I don't know where every vending machine on campus is and where all the masks are. So you get a lot of questions like that. Plus, as Chris said, there were over 20 questions. I mean, numerous questions came up. Some were rhetorical, some were narrative that wasn't really worth mentioning. And some of them have a lot of narrative and I'm trying to get to the bottom of the question. So I think we need to come up with a system where there's clarity in the question, what specifically is the question you are asking, and to help us narrow it down, since we are getting many, many more questions than we've previously had before.
Well, and to kind of echo what Jennifer said, I think that we do need to give our questioners some expectations of what they can expect when they do submit something to that Dropbox, because as we all read them, they come in different tone and different tonality. And Jennifer, I got the sense that what we were trying to do was categorize the questions that were similar together, that way to be respectful to our speakers' time. And if there are statements where folks want to make, because some of them are written as questions, but they really read as statements of disapproval, we need to give folks an opportunity to express that in a way that is not disrespectful. Because I do agree, while a lot of the sentiments, the gist of these questions were very important and could be categorized together, some of the disapproving aspects, we need to give the staff an expectation on how we want to handle those sentiments.
Thank you, Robert. I agree with that. We just, when we ask questions, we need to do it in a professional manner and by keeping good relationships in between staff and administration.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you.
No, go ahead, Lauren.
Is there any reason that we can't compile all of these anonymous emails, say we have a cutoff time, maybe at the end of the day after the staff Senate meeting, and say, look, we're willing to take all of these, literally cut and paste the anonymous emails and send those to Susan and Dr. Caboni or other VPs that may be involved. I mean, that way at least they're seeing the question, and if they feel like they need to respond to campus, then they can, or if they need to respond just to staff hall, they can, or whatever. I mean, I don't see
We definitely need to do a better job of managing. It's like Jennifer spoke before, it's like typically in an average month before COVID-19 hit, we were only getting like 2 or 3 anonymous emails a month. And now we're getting, I can't remember how many we got this month. I mean, we've gotten.
Well, just
got
today.
17 alone this morning.
Yeah, just today. I mean, and
each one of these questions do take time to get answers for, and we have to contact the right people. So we just have to develop some kind of system now to handle the number of questions that we are now receiving to try to get these questions answered in an appropriate manner.
I think it's a testament to our times that there are a lot of questions, and I do think that we need to make sure that we're passing those on, whether we're truly getting an answer, whether I see the answer or not. It's again, Susan puts out regular communication. Dr. Caboni does as well with the whole campus, and I'm certain that they would feel comfortable once they have reflected on these questions, submitting some answers or getting some information to campus in their communications. If they don't know about it, they can't communicate it to us.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many emails I've forwarded to like David Oliver or to Tony Glisson or Brian Russell, Susan, the president, the provost, as they come in. Obviously, the ones right during the meeting, it's kind of hard to like be in the meeting and review all the questions that are coming in during the meeting. But I think if we set some kind of time frame, so many days before the meeting, maybe we can help get these answered. But just an influx, like what'd you say? We had 17 today. Is that right? That's hard to get all those worked in and get those answered by like during the meeting. If we can.
And we also meet before this meeting. We have committee meetings for the hour before this meeting. So sometimes so it's not just emails coming in during this meeting we may not be able to review, but if they come in the hour before we have this meeting, every one of the senators is in another meeting at that time as well. So that makes that hard to review those and compile those that come in for the hour before and during the meeting.
If one thing, go ahead, Mike.
Sorry, go ahead.
One thing I also wanted to make sure that we don't leave out, and sorry, my camera is off. I'm not feeling well, and I don't want you to see a zombie talking on the other end. One thing that I don't want us to forget is that if we don't address these questions in the meeting, there's not a way to contact the individual who had the question to assure them that the questions are answered. And so as we develop a system, and I don't know if this is something we should do as an ad hoc committee or whatever, we need to also have some transparency for folks who can't attend this meeting, who, luckily for me, I was in a staff meeting, I could leave to come to this, but had not, if I had a question and I wasn't here, I may not be able to get the answer. So some way that we can ensure that there is feedback for the questions, even if we know the way they're worded, we're not going to present to our panelists, because I don't think the purpose of these meetings are to beat up and abuse our panelists. I do think, however, we do need to make sure we're asking getting to the point of the questions so people can get feedback and providing some other feedback out of the meeting if we don't have a chance to do it during. Apologize for the
I definitely
length of
agree.
that answer.
I think Robert's right. And what I was going to say, I only attended one staff senate meeting pre-COVID, but if we were in a face-to-face scenario, would there be a mechanism for people that attended the meeting to ask questions? Because I think the anonymous Dropbox form has become a mechanism to ask questions, and I don't know, but that doesn't feel like what it was really intended for. So we may need the ability for people to submit, maybe not so much anonymous questions, but questions.
I think one of the,
No,
go ahead, Chris.
No, go ahead, David. Go ahead.
I think one of the challenges that the staff face versus the faculty is that in the faculty senate meetings, which can be much more confrontational than anything that happens in this forum, I think that there's a broader sense of freedom of asking sometimes what, in my opinion, can be ridiculous questions. But you know, it's the tone of, well, what are you going to do about it, right? So the other thing that I think we have to, and I agree, Jordan, I don't know that the Dropbox is the best way to just get an inflammatory comment in front of the president. The trouble that I have with this is I do think it's important to communicate the tenor of these questions that are coming from the staff, because it does reflect their state of being in the workplace. And what I don't want to see us do, and this is just an opinion now, you all, is sterilize to the point that the severity of some of these comments is not getting passed along. There is no intent to be disrespectful to the host or to the people that we're hosting, but I think it is fair to pass along. You know, if we get 4 questions, if we get a lot of questions asking about why so many people have left campus recently, I think it's fair to communicate the tenor of that, because I think that's a serious concern. Now, if somebody just writes an inflammatory comment like, why aren't you asking the questions, are you chicken? I mean, that's not a useful thing in the forum.
Which we got.
But I would like to know, I think the staff do this under the veil of, we can't do this in person because we're worried about our jobs.
Right.
And I think there's got to be a middle ground where more, I mean, I guess I'm reading a different list. There were just a ton of things that didn't get addressed.
That's right.
And I realize 17 of them just came this morning, but I think too, this reflects the tenor of the staff. And that's what concerns me, is that if we are not communicating or representing the actual feelings, then we're doing a disservice to the people that we were passing questions along. I'm not saying that happened. I'm just saying,
There's also a situation where you need to be careful with the tenor, because that may not be reflective of the larger body, but can definitely influence the larger body.
Right, but I think we can straight read the emails as they come in. If we're going to ask them in the forum, I don't see a problem with that, because that reflects what the person said and you can straight read it. That's my opinion. I don't think that's offensive if you say, this is the email that we received and we're just passing this along. I understand sometimes that this mechanism, there's things that you have to filter out. But in my opinion, some of these were written in a very, very respectful way. They were just pointed questions because someone is upset with what they are seeing. So I don't think we can take away someone being upset and having an issue because we're not comfortable representing them.
And I agree with you, Emily, 100%. That's why I brought it question. And I don't want, if it's something hugely disrespectful, like calling out people or calling us chickens or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
One
And
thing
if I could, sorry, go
So,
ahead.
well,
I
here's
have
my thing.
a moment
Okay,
I like to talk.
yeah. So here's what I'm gonna do right now. I think that this is a discussion that we need to discuss in executive meeting. And I do agree that we need to start doing these. It's hard for us to read. I can't read these emails and also pay attention to what's being said to me. So here's what we'll do from here on out. We will have a meeting. I'm sorry, Mike, I just kind of took over. I apologize. But we will have a meeting and discuss this so that we can come up with a better plan for next time so that we can ensure that all of the questions are being answered. However, everyone should also know that Mike has a meeting with the President Caboni every month, and he discusses every question that is being asked, and he sends them to them. And also, if it's COVID related, he goes to the COVID meetings every week or however long they are, and he sends every email that goes. So everyone's being heard. But I also understand that staff feel that they're disrespected. I hear them. We are fighting for them. David Brinkley fights for us. We all fight for each other. But I think that this is a conversation that we need to table and maybe come back at a later time when we're not live on YouTube and discuss this at another time.
This is just a growing moment. I'm glad you said that. I understand, but I don't want to cut Anthony off.
No, not at all. Not at all.
My comments were along the same lines. I think we need a better mechanism. The mechanism doesn't exist. We've grown into an issue. We need to resolve that. Like we've mentioned, there needs to be a deadline of the questions leading up to the meeting. We can't take the volume that we're currently getting live. We've got to make that distinction. We don't need to create a second Q&A for COVID related. That already exists. We can leverage that mechanism for those questions. I think we are in a growing moment that live as we're in these meetings. And much like she also said, it's hard to receive those questions while also participating in the meeting. So, I think there's a lot of growth we need to do there to address those questions and let everyone know and have the feedback on the back end of the meetings that every question that's being asked will be passed on and it will also get an answer. And we need to get a mechanism in place to get those questions answered visibly, somewhere on a website, and whether that's leveraging the current Q&As or creating some additionals.
Yeah, so I want to just very quickly jump in and say, I appreciate the methodology behind what went on today. And I know that was very difficult and it was planned, and I approve of how that was done. I am only saying and echoing what has been said. I agree. This is a growing moment. This is where we know that the staff Senate is having an impact. And I think that we can move forward and know that this has moved into being a significant mechanism that people would like to use. We're testing the waters with how we manage it. And also, when people necessarily don't feel or feel comfortable, developing a way that is not insulting. I agree with Robert and Jennifer and Chris and everybody on this. We don't want to insult the person that we're asking questions to. I chose to read some questions last time straight from the emails, and I understand Emily's point, because that is one way that you can directly reflect the exact tenor. However, it also isolates and can be off-putting to the person receiving the question. And even when I read those, I was being selective with that process because you all know, because we have that list in front of us of all those questions, which ones I asked and which ones I didn't. So I think that editing process is where we need to, as a group, move forward. And I will say, I think this group is in a great position to do that. And I appreciate every second of every bit of everyone's time that's gone into this.
One thing,
Mike, if I may.
I just want to add to the conversation before we switch, and this will be very quickly. When the group meets please take a look at the form to see if there are ways that people can indicate their level of satisfaction or dissatisfaction in a way that we can just communicate separate from the question. Because I think if the question is about testing, let's address testing, and then we can indicate to the respondent that the individual expressing this question is very dissatisfied with their experience, not necessarily calling someone out of their name or whatever. And
Yeah, we can incorporate that.
Yeah, if you add a Likert element, I think that's a great idea.
Steve, do you have a comment?
Well, it seems like during this pandemic, it may be prudent to have a separate question and answer Dropbox meeting with whichever executive, be it Susan or the president, we feel it would be pertinent to. And I realize everyone's time is precious, and that I thought Jennifer did an excellent job of summarizing the questions today. I've seen them all, and I didn't see too many that she left out that weren't covered in some way by an answer. So maybe it's a completely separate thing that we could put in temporarily, where we address those questions to the anonymous Dropbox directly for a set amount of time, as long as we have the time with the people we think would be able to give us the answer. Because that was an hour right there of questions for almost just for Dr. Gaboni, and so we have to be respectful of everyone's time as well. So maybe we could put that into place to where we just address those questions separate of the staff Senate agenda. Just throwing it out there.
Yeah. I just let everybody know we will figure this out, and I want everyone to feel like their voice is heard, and we do get the messages. Those messages are being passed along. They're being forwarded, so they're being seen as written when they are forwarded.
Okay.
So the administration, whoever I send it to, can see the tone, whoever I send it to. But we're going to have to figure out how to manage this. The current setup we have is not even close to working with the amount of volume that we are seeing now. But we will get figured out, and we've been brainstorming. I've talked with several people about some ideas, and now we just need to kind of get together and figure out a solution so we can represent staff well, make them feel heard, and get their questions answered the best that we possibly can, with them being anonymous by nature. So, all right, well, let's move on to our agenda. I guess we have not approved the minutes that Tanya put together. So if I could get, let's have a motion to discuss the minutes. Is there any, can I get a motion to, is that right, Doug? Right.
Yeah, you would, I guess, just look for any discussion on the minutes.
Yeah. Is there any discussion on the minutes? Sorry. No discussion. Okay, can I get a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, we have a second. All right, so
Who seconded?
Brian did. Okay.
Oh, Brian did.
Well, I saw him raise his hand. I don't know if somebody else did. All right, so let's take a vote. Those in favor of approving the minutes? All right. Those opposed? Unanimous. Okay. The motion has passed. The minutes have been approved. Okay. All right. So Monica and the workforce committee, which was also co-chaired by Jordan, have been working on reviewing policies, HR policies, and one policy that they have brought up that they would like to see reviewed is the review of policy 4.2501, alternative work arrangements. And I've also brought that up with President Gaboni that this is something that they're wanting to review. This is a lot of workplace flexibility, and it seems like now would be a good time to since it's been since 2009, since that's been updated, we could take a look at that and see what, maybe we could get that policy updated to kind of change with some of the current policies that we're seeing right now, that we've, people have proven that they can do some work from home in certain positions. But Monica, what would you like to add to that?
Yes, the individuals on the workforce development or the workforce committee are Lauren Nasello, Robert Unsold, Jordan Basham, Rachel Cato, and Rhonda Sullivan. However, Lauren Ocello is going to discuss this specific policy today and get feedback from Staff Senate.
So just really quickly, we've just started taking a look at this policy. So we don't have any, we don't have a draft or anything like that yet. But one thing that we do want to make sure is that this policy is not related to COVID and any COVID procedures or policies that are out there. So this policy is actually looking at, moving forward, different arrangements that individuals might be able to engage in their offices. Again, not related to COVID. We want this to be a policy that's going to move forward, even when hopefully there is some more normalcy with, with our day-to-day operations after COVID. So that's really what we're looking at. I'm sorry?
More permanent long-term policy.
Yes, it's a more permanent long-term policy. I've pulled some policies from other universities just to look at, and that's kind of where we're at right now. This work group does plan to look at all the policies, all the HR policies. This is just a policy that we saw as a kind of initial need for updating. So that's where we're at right now. Thoughts? What do people think Staff Senate wise?
And for future reference, we will also have HR involved as well.
Well, and just to add to what Lauren said, and also to address the question just came in, there was discussion about an open comment period on these policy discussions. That way, folks outside of the committee have an opportunity to weigh in, to review it, and suggest what changes we should take a look at as a group.
I would say probably the easiest way for staff to have some kind of input is to email one of us. We can tell you again who's on that committee, but I'm always happy for somebody to email me. And I'm not, of course, in the legal field, we don't share anything really. If somebody sends me an email and says, look, this is a concern or something I've thought about with alternative work arrangements, I'm more than happy to take it to the group and we can move forward. But I think that's we definitely want input if anyone has a suggestion on things that we could do better with that policy.
I think,
Right.
I mean,
Okay.
as looking at different minutes or different policies, I think it'll be good to get the staff involved as well.
Sorry, Laura, I'm sorry, Tanya, what did you say? I couldn't catch all that. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just saying thank you for looking at it or having them look at it. I think it's a great idea to look at some of these policies, especially if it's been since 2009, and a lot of things have changed since then. So I was just saying, good job.
Is there any other discussion on this? Yeah, I appreciate the workforce committee's work on this, and I think this would be a valuable, I guess, policy update if we can get this for staff, and it'd be good for also staff retention, I think. Okay, if there's nothing else to discuss on that, we'll move on to Staff Senate email reviews, which I believe covered a lot of them already. Jennifer, is there questions that we have not gotten to that you were saving for the email review portion of our agenda?
Trying to look through them as we were having our meeting here. Again, several of them are more narratives, people showing things on Twitter, just concerned with people not wearing masks. That it's not really a question, and we're doing a lot to ensure and require people, for example, in the libraries, people have to wear a mask to come in. And we've had very, very positive experiences in our building. People have been very respectful and been wearing their masks. I think there's people, when they're outdoors, they tend to, walking up the hill, pull their mask off, or if they're outside in a class. So I don't know how to respond to that.
Sorry. This might be a good opportunity for us to say how we have responded to those questions. When people have sent those complaints in, talk about like maybe that's something that comes up in the task force, or that's something that's presented to the COVID, like forwarded on the COVID email. That might help people understand how these are actively dealt with.
So typically when they come in, if it's related to COVID-19, I guess, protocol, if I feel sick or something like that, or what should I do, or what's the policy with, something COVID related, I might email that to forward that on to David Oliver when I know Jennifer has those responses to a few of those questions I forwarded on, or, if it's something for facility related, I could forward that on to Ron Russell. And I think a lot of times he'll contact Ken Bosky. Sorry. I'm drawing a blank.
Ken Branch.
Yes, Ken Branch. Thank you, David. I was drawing a blank on that. But those are being forwarded. Sometimes I do bring those up in the task force group, just depending on what the situation is. If it's something I can just go to a certain area to get a response, or if I need the opinion of the entire COVID task force. Jordan, do you think, does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think that helps people understand that maybe not everything needs to have 100 people sitting on YouTube to understand that there are answers being found for them. And it's hard to address a lot of them. Some of them I've seen, like, just because of what I do, I understand the environment we're in.
Unfortunately, there's a lot of answers that I could, or another staff Senate member would have the answer to. Yeah. And we could get the answers really quick to them, but they're anonymous emails, and by nature of anonymous, we don't know who to talk to.
Yeah.
We do get emails sent to staff Senate directly, and we can give replies back to those people that do. So if it's something that you feel comfortable asking a question on with your name, we'll be glad to find out, pass that question along to get the answer, and we get it back to you. But if it's anonymous, it does make it more difficult for us to get the answers to you. But we're, we've already discussed, we're working on ways to improve that.
Well,
yeah. and Mike, if we could, go ahead, David. I'm sorry.
Sorry. No, you're fine, buddy. I'll just say very quickly, and I'm thinking of one question now in particular that came up that would be a wholly inappropriate question. And I can say this to this group, and you'll know which question I'm talking about. When you question how another department is using their own budgeted money, that is not an appropriate question for the staff Senate to address. If somebody wants to know how I spend $10,000, they can come ask me. But to pass judgment on another department on this campus with an accusatory tone and say, well, why are you spending X amount of dollars out of your allocated budget to do this? That's really not the purpose of this group, is to moderate how at least in my opinion, moderate how other departments spend their own money. So I think people have to be reasonable in their expectation as well. And that's the other piece that I'm trying to add here.
And another one to add to that, David, is if it's an email in regards to a particular person not wearing a face mask, or one individual, a staff member not following, that's not staff Senate's job to address those issues.
No, I agree 100%. Sorry, Robert, I cut you off. Go ahead, man.
Oh, you're good. The comment I was going to make is for the questions that come in that can be answered in a way which is not against who we are or what we're supposed to accomplish. Could those be digested in some way? And this is for the small group that's going to meet to consider. Potentially digesting those in some way, maybe appending them to the minutes or on a shared location where folks could go to access those if they wanted, but not necessarily trying to contact some anonymous individual through clues to get them some answer. And so
that is something, I don't know, somebody else brought that up to me, and I don't remember who, but yeah, that is definitely an option that we can consider. Is that you, Monica? Is that or okay?
That's what we discussed yesterday.
There was a question too that came in about open records, and any email that comes through, whether it's an anonymous one through the staff Senate email or any email is going to be open to or subject to open record. There could be exemptions, but yeah, it's always open to open record. So I know some people are might be concerned about that, but you know, our office handles those. So you know, you do what you can. You can always call people too, you know, so definitely don't be afraid to do that.
Yeah, and people might not understand that's how the anonymous Dropbox delivers to us is through email. So it's the same thing.
Yeah, we just don't know who sends it.
Yeah.
It just
that there isn't, like, people should definitely use the option, put your email in. Like, I know Mike wouldn't pass that along if somebody was to ask a question. It would just be to get you the answer.
Yes. No, we would not pass along people's names.
Right.
Yeah, and maybe that's a piece that we should, that group should work on, is having people understand that, you know, that doesn't, you know, we just don't forward that with their email address, because that may be an area where I think we can get more answers out and people can be more satisfied with the responses. That's a great observation.
And I think that one of the pieces of the solution should really be to, whether it is, like Robert said, appending it to the minutes or placing a document somewhere on the Staff Senate site, that these were the questions that came in. These were the answer. These were the ones that were passed on for an answer. These are the ones we did not pass on because we didn't feel it was appropriate. But a place for people to go to know for sure that those questions were seen and heard, because right now it's easy for someone to assume it. And we've seen even, you know, it seems like there's an individual that's followed up a couple of times this morning on, why didn't you ask this question? You didn't ask questions that we put in the Dropbox. Maybe just a way for them to know that it's not just a concern or frustration shot out into the abyss, that it actually was handled and heard. If it's something inappropriate and we classify it that way, then they know that that was the result, that we felt like, you know, are we too chicken to ask something? We're not going to entertain that question. You know, the budget, like the example that David brought up of, that's how someone else is using their allocated budget. We're not going to address that as a Staff Senate or ask anyone else to address that. That's how that got classified. But the ones that are actually, you know, we are going to seek a response, or Mike, you kind of delegate it out and forward it on to different people and get a response on those, just aggregating those in one location. It's out there. People can see that. Whoever asked that question anonymously, they can go and find that answer and what happened to it. I think that if we're going to continue having that open anonymous forum for questions to be asked, people need to be able to see what happened, what was the result of that. Otherwise, it just serves as a way to potentially increase some frustration, I think.
Yeah, the anonymous emails has evolved very quickly in the last 6 months from what it was the last 4 years I've been on Staff Senate. It's very different, but we will get the issues worked out. We'll figure out a solution. It probably won't be perfect, but we'll do the best that we possibly can. Jennifer, I know there were some questions that we got some responses from David Oliver on, and I think Brian Russell, if you could go over that.
I mentioned them earlier when the president was talking, because there was a question regarding frequent cleaning taking place. And this is where we get into, I was trying to compile some of the questions because they're all very relevant. But Brian Russell said, thank you for sharing. He's copied the Director of Facilities Management, so he's passed that information on. And we informed the public who's here today to contact Ken Branch, Brian Russell, or Brandon Higgins, Laura Tomlin, Michael Gaddy for more information. I mean, if it comes to a specific building, again, we don't know what building that is. It really needs to be addressed with the particular situation, because they are working hard at getting more cleaning done, but there could be an oversight. So somebody of authority needs to know to help work the problem out. So. There was a question, Mike, that I think you had answered about the threshold for testing the occupants of a sorority or fraternity house. Has this threshold been applied to apartment, or I'm sorry, department, office, or building? And Mike, you may be able to speak to this, but it said there is no threshold set. Working with public health, we saw a few cases among students residing in the Greek chapters. And I think the president addressed this as well today, talking about if we see anywhere that indicates a problem, they're going to jump on that facility or that building to have everyone tested. Is that not what everybody heard today? Okay. And there were some conflicting questions. Well, how did I read this here and I didn't read it there? I think the president answered the numbers question. Our numbers are a little higher than maybe the state numbers.
Yes, there are two. There's the governor has released K through 12 university. He's released information on like numbers for each school. And I have not looked at the numbers this week, but I know when the governor's numbers first come out, they were lower than what we were reporting. But WKU has continued to try to collect their own information and post that on the dashboard website. And if you want to see the governor's numbers, go to the governor's website. Susan, I don't know, can you hear me, Susan? Is that accurate?
I'm sorry, Mike, I was dealing with another issue. So repeat what you were asking.
We had a question about the dashboard and then the governor's numbers, but my understanding is we are only reporting the numbers that we are collecting on the dashboard, and people want to see the governor's number, they can go to the other website.
That's correct. This data collection and dashboarding, I didn't even realize it until we've really gotten into it. It's very, very difficult. It's probably the most complicated algebra problem you could have. It's like the number of tests, it is basically a estimate or a calculation or some type of projection. And that's why positivity rates are really hard to get at, as the president talked about. So there probably is going to be some differences between the dashboard. But as a matter of fact, while you were talking, I was texting around dashboard and testing. So I'll probably know more about that, Mike, and we can talk about it a little more in task force next Tuesday. And then you could take it back to the full Senate.
All right, thank you, Susan.
Let me say something though while I've got the floor. So I was just dealing with a email from the president that a staff person had written us and said that maybe she was listening through YouTube or such, but she had an issue. She doesn't take WKU's insurance because her husband is insured through another company. HR told them that they were not under the WKU health insurance, so therefore their testing would not fall into our policy. That is not correct, and that's one of the things we're testing on. We're going to get that fixed. There's probably some logistical issues around that if your spouse is insured elsewhere and you go get a test, they ask for your insurance card. So we got to get this figured out, and you give them your spouse's insurance card, they bill your spouse's. So anyway, the president and I are committed to getting this fixed. It's just all of us getting together. It's like he said, I guess if we strive for perfection, we're going to fail. So as these things come up, we'll get them fixed. And I've got a Zoom on that one at 1:30 today. So we'll get it.
Thanks for the update, Susan. That's good information to have. I know we also got a question that was sent to us that was regarding the staff Senate document that we put out on, it's on the Healthy on Hill website with the COVID-19. It's in reference to questions that we got answers for staff. And we, I guess it's been a month since we updated it, and someone sent an email saying that the Healthy on Hill website has, I guess, basically conflicting information on what we have. But the person that sent the email did not say what information is conflicting. As far as I know, everything is still accurate. I know that our document was sent to Susan and to Tony and to David to make sure it was accurate before we put it up. So if something has changed on there, we are not aware. So if you want to, if that person is listening, please email us back. David, do you have any comment on that, or?
No, I'm back. I was kicked off.
Oh, okay, gotcha. So I wish I could offer more information, but I don't know what may not be accurate. As far as I know, everything is accurate on there.
I can comment on that one a little bit. Dealing with somebody who I work with, taking some tests, I was looking for some answers for them, and started with, I had our PDF downloaded, so I just pulled it up because I was having some internet issues that day, but ended up getting on the FAQ is just a little hard to search.
Mhm.
So the PDF is great for searching.
Which is why we created the PDF.
Yeah, exactly, right. But there's quite a few things that were updated, like the 17th of August.
Okay.
I don't know how much the language changed, or that's just an OU Campus feature that maybe somebody fixed a comma or something. But that message came in, I think, the day before, and then I realized that.
Okay. Right. So you don't know what was updated. You just know something changed on it.
Yeah, there were like 3 or 4 things. Like it was.
John Mark Francis is working hard on keeping that updated as much as possible. But when we made our document, we wanted to try to keep it short and concise and make it easier to find answers. But if there's something on there that we will most definitely update that as needed if we just know what's changed. So.
Yeah, I do think if people look through that whole document, it does point you to the website as part of it. So that might be helpful to.
Okay. Jennifer, is there any other emails that we need to talk about?
I'm just going through the questions again, and unless somebody sees something that I'm missing, somebody did bring up the comment about there's foggers being used in the buses. And is this something that could be used in regular buildings? And I don't know.
Yeah, I don't.
The buses are being used, and perhaps men's basketball is using foggers to sanitize areas. So that would be a question we'd need to refer on.
Yes. Yeah, we can send that on. I do not have the answer to that one. I don't know if that's something that you can only use those in certain type areas. I have no idea. Is that all of them? All of them?
Yeah, I don't know if this is a question. It's one I don't think that we asked, or I don't know that there will be an answer. It may be on the dashboard. I'm not sure. Someone asked how many students are currently in quarantine. I don't know if that's something that is out there or not, or in the governor's document.
Oh, did that come in today, that question?
Yeah, it came in this morning.
Okay. Don't have the answer to that one either.
No.
Mike, there were 2 questions that I thought really weren't addressed that I feel like are probably concerns, and it goes back to morale. It has nothing to do with COVID, with multiple respected staff members in key positions having left that are more in the top management, top leadership realm for their areas, and why that there seems to be such a significant overturn taking place, and that it's creating instability. So I thought that was a really good question. And then there was another one in regards to the internal audit and if there was a conflict of interest. I know Caboni touched on this briefly, when he was speaking, but specifically internal audit and then the interim CFO are now being ran from the same office. And then why has this important operation been allowed to remain unstaffed by independent people? So I think there's some key points there that we may need to get addressed in regards to the internal auditor, because I think a lot of the questions that we've received in this forum, some of those might have just gone directly to our internal auditor. So, and that would have been who would have been trying to find answers or following up on some of that. So I think that may be a key component. Some of the stuff that we receive anonymously, it's not for Staff Senate to address, but it may be something that the internal auditor would address. So that was just, I wanted to point that out because I thought those were two decent questions.
Well, I guess from I remember what President Gavoni said, that they were in the process of starting to look for the director position first. Is that what everybody remembers hearing? And then I guess after that point, they'll fill in the other position to fill that office again. So it seemed like that question has been answered. I think that it's in process. I'm sure.
I think the concern is that there's a lot on Christy Smith's plate right now. I think Christy Smith is truly capable. I think she is an amazing person. But I also think as a friend, she has a lot on her plate. So that's just something I think is a lot of people are seeing right now on campus, that there's a lot of top leadership positions that have become vacant at this time.
Hopefully that can be filled quickly. Okay. Anything else?
There was one other question I'm going to paraphrase a little bit, but it was asking about what metrics we plan to use to measure the success of the restart plan. The question kind of referred to it in terms of, are we saying that it's a success and goals? I don't think that we set as a university that this is our acceptable number of positive cases of coronavirus or anything like that. But like, it might be worth asking in the task force committee kind of what other metrics are we looking at. I don't think that there's going to be a firm, we succeeded or failed type of assessment of that restart plan. I think that it's been made clear that it's a living process that will continue to adapt as we see holes in that plan or areas that could be improved. But it may be worthwhile. What other metrics aside from what's on that dashboard, I think might be the heart of that question.
Okay. All right, I'll see what I can find out on that. Was that a new question, Brian?
I think that one came in on Friday.
Friday?
Yeah, I think.
Okay. It sounded familiar, but I couldn't remember it when it come in. Okay. Yeah, I'll get some more information on that one.
What do we know? Did we decide what committee is going to take on how to answer these, or is that a workforce thing or a communications thing or an executive committee thing?
I think we probably need to.
Okay.
That's to be determined. We need to figure out our system and get that in place to figure out how we can more effectively get these answers. There's just so many of them.
Thank you.
Yeah, the scope of this, just to be fair, I mean, when I first came on as regent, we'd be lucky if we had 2 questions a month. And we've had 20 today. This is a much different kind of season on this.
I think that's a pretty good sign for how effective at getting answers we've been. So good job, y'all.
All right. Well, if there's nothing else, I appreciate everyone's time today, and then the time that y'all put in to the rest of the month to help serve staff. And I know it's definitely challenging right now, but I think we are making a difference. We definitely have things that we can improve on, like how we can handle the the emails from staff to get the answers to them, but we'll work through it. We'll get it figured out. And I appreciate everyone's time. And okay, yeah, I don't have any announcements to make unless anybody else does. All right, we've gone through everything on the agenda, so
I
you're
have a
dismissed.
quick question, sorry. And Susan might be able to answer this. So sorry, just literally nothing, doesn't relate to any of that. Has the benefits committee met recently? Or is the benefits committee going to start meeting? I think, Emily, are you on that committee?
I am, and we did not meet last month, but we are meeting on September 9th on Wednesday at 3 p.m.
Okay.
That's what I thought. I think they skipped a month.
Yeah. Gotcha. Thank you. Sorry.
All right. Well, we've gone through everything. Dismissed, and I appreciate everybody's help. And we'll see y'all later.
Hey guys, thank you.
Bye.